I just wanted to start with, asking you, Mr. Sood, the lay of the land, as it were, in terms of the crime scene in Bangalore. How has it evolved over the years? I mean, we went from the gang wars of the 80s, 70s and 80s probably, to becoming the Silicon City and the associated crimes as well. So how has this situation evolved from your point of view? And is there anything very unique about the Bangalore crime scene compared to, say, a Mumbai or a Delhi that we need to be aware of?
You raised the issue of crime scene in Bangalore. I can say without any fear of contradiction, Bangalore and Karnataka is still one of the safest city and the safest state in the country. I don't want to talk bad about other cities, but relatively, if you ask me, is Bangalore safer than Bangalore was in 1980s? No. But that is true about every city, every state. As the social inequalities are increasing, as the problems are increasing, the strife between various sections of people in society is increasing. Cities and states and countries are becoming more and more unsafe. But if you compare it with other cities, it's much safer, whether for men or women. It's one of the safest cities for women. I can say that with confidence. Of course, the nature of crime over the decades have changed. And I won't be in service, but maybe 10 years later, when we discuss, the nature of crime would further change. The street crimes and the dacoities, robberies, etc., would probably become history, because the cost and the risk of committing physical crimes is very high, and whereas the cost and risk of committing crimes in the virtual world, which we call a cybercrime, has reduced so much, and it has become so easy that more and more criminals are going to be pushed to the virtual world, and therefore making the task of police very, very difficult. 10 years hence, I see at least cybercrime multiplying by 10 times or 20 times or maybe even 100 times. I mean, you may say, how are you saying, why don't you stop it? This is something which will evolve, because as the internet penetration increases from urban to rural areas, people will keep falling prey to all kinds of crimes unknowingly, most of the time unknowingly, lot of time out of greed. They will keep falling prey. And the problem with this kind of crime is that it is committed by someone who is faceless, nameless. All we know is an IP address which may be located in some part of the world. And world, I am not even saying city or state or the country. So I read in one of the newspapers today only that, oh, detection of cybercrime is 26%. I am surprised. It can't be 26%. It will be much low. It can't be, because somebody sitting in some part of the world can siphon money from your bank accounts, can hack your email, can hack your social media. Because by nature, we are so careless. We are so careless about using social media, about using our emails. The passwords are lying freely available, can be guessed very easily. So we are not very alert. And therefore, you may say, what to do? We have to be more careful. The prevention is the best antidote for preventing cybercrime from expanding. So just to sum up here, the nature of crime in the years to come is going to change and is going to be tougher, more and more difficult to catch hold of accused.
Colonel Das, I understand that in your army days, probably you are more dealing with the cyber geopolitical issues, probably. But from your vantage point in Cisco, looking at cyber security as a whole, what would you say is the lay of the land as of today in terms of cyber crimes? And what is it that you see that evolves over a period of time?
Right. So, see, I want to take off from where you left. Yeah. my understanding is that the fundamentals of human dynamics, right, which drives crime, it drives many other things, to my mind, will not change, right? Let's begin with that assumption. The second is 2040 from a technology point of view is far too away to make even an estimate.
Let's come to 2040 later, but let's look at the lay of the land.
With a permission, I will say 2030.
Okay.
Even 8 years is a very long time in the cycle of technology and cyber. Okay. The third is, the anonymity that you get in the virtual world has completely changed human dynamics. So things like honor, things like prestige, things like personal brand, things like visibility, they've all gone for a toss because you now have a virtual world, and therefore the envelope of crime has increased many, many times more from a sociological point of view. So if there were 10% of people inclined to commit crime, now you will find that 40% more, 50% more, people who would never be thieves or rapists, they're inclined because they now have the cover of anonymity. So I think that's a paradigm change. The third is, and this is, I'm bringing from my information warfare world, right, where you have an adversary. The same model applies to a large extent. It has now got into the crime side as well, which is that there is a continuous chase between the bad guys and the good guys. Because you look at legislation, right, and I'll leave it for for the lady to cover her because she's an expert there. But fundamentally, you find that law has its limitations. And those limitations now stand exposed in the virtual world.
Okay. Jainab, thanks for rushing here from your hearing. I was just wondering, there was this fear. This question is to all three of you. Jaina can go at it first, and then you can come at it later. There was this fear that there would be a rise in crimes post-pandemic. One is, of course, the depredations that the pandemic has brought about on a lot of people, and therefore the rise in inequality. Inequality, of course, is a much longer-term problem. And there was this fear that there would be a rise in crimes. And there's a issue with, how do you deal with, newer crimes, newer issues that are coming up, particularly because of the, anonymity nature of crimes. From a court and evidence perspective, how do you see this at this stage?
Thanks. I'm not too sure whether crimes have kind of increased post-pandemic. And if so, what is the nature of the crimes that have specifically increased post-pandemic? I don't have any data on that. But, while we're talking of a lot of online digital crimes and how do courts look at it and evidence, these are all very new crimes which are now being, filed with the police. Though we've had, some of these crimes included within the law, within, the Criminal Amendment Act was made in 2013 after the Nirbhaya case.
Okay.
There was a commission set up, and following that, many new provisions were put, including voyeurism, stalking, sexual harassment, and all of these include all these offenses done online as well, and through digital modes. But then, getting them in the court, of course, we do have provisions of the Evidence Act where you can, provide digital documents and, digital devices and all of that. But our courts are still slow to, grapple with this. I think the courts are yet to grapple with the seriousness of it. But what is happening, and I think our law enforcement as well are yet to grapple with it, grapple with the seriousness of it. Because what is happening, I think, in the daily lives of a lot of young women is that they are facing an amount of digital violence that is unimaginable. And these are just everyday people, I've had friends, young colleagues, young people tell me that they are constantly trolled, they are sent obscene photographs on their messages, from unknown persons. Now it's so easy to make up identities, no one knows who it is. Your phone, and all these, your details are available to many people, even though you keep them, even though you don't share them. A lot of them don't share their mobile numbers, but from somewhere it is available. Your email, your social media accounts are kind of available. And then, what is someone supposed to do in their daily, how many accounts can you shut? How many phones can you change, right? And then the onus is always on the victim or the receiver of such harassment. The onus is not on the perpetrator. So, what can an ordinary person do when she gets these messages? You can shut down, you can report on Facebook or Instagram, you shut down your account, you block them on your phone. But how many times can you block? When you go to the police, they will say, yes, madam, what has happened? We deal with so many more things. Not to belittle the work, but, this violence is so pervasive that it is seen as, it is often trivialized. And I think women who are possibly speaking out against issues, who are activists, defenders, face even more trolling. They face death threats, rape threats. We've seen a lot of well-known journalists face that as well. They have filed police complaints, but are they given protection? And if so, even if they need protection, what kind of protection can they get? How do we devise solutions that their online lives are safe, that they can interact? The right to interact online is, for your work, for social interaction, is as much a fundamental right in your freedom of speech and expression. How can you exercise it safely? So those are some challenges, really.
Right. Mr. Sood, I brought up this question basically because the previous Commissioner of Police brought this up, saying, there would be a rise in crimes. And I think some statistics do show that, crimes of poverty, probably crimes of, those that are brought up by increasing inequality and things like that. Are you seeing those happening at this stage, or are we moving towards cyber in that dimension as well?
Yeah, so I would say very plainly, in a developing society, increase in crime is a very natural phenomena. In fact, I would be extremely worried if somebody says that in my city I have brought down the crime rate by 50% or 75%. These are the statements which are made by some other people whom I don't want to name. But as policeman, as a professional policeman, I would say this is very unusual, because if as a head of crime I want to reduce it to 50%, all I have to do it, just issue one instruction not to register the crime. That's the easiest thing for any police force to do, but that's not a very healthy thing. Second thing is, so in a developing society, it's a natural, if it is a very moderate increase, which will happen. The second part you raise this is a very valid point, that when we are talking about cybercrime, let's not always think about the cheating where you lose money and all. Huge amount of cybercrime is happening where the stalking and all kind of obscene things happening over the cyberspace, and where the victims are the ladies or the children and all. In fact, if somebody asks me, what is social media? So I say in very, very common man's language, social media is a media where you can abuse anyone and get away with. You can throw stones on anyone and get away with and disappear, and nothing is going to happen. Now, you may ask me, why do you say nothing is going to happen? All these things have been criminalized. Yes. All these things may be technically criminal in nature, but one, that the volume is so much that no system can handle it. Second, we have actually not created systems to handle it. Now, in India, everyone feels that registering an FIR is the ultimate thing. That is nothing. That is just setting the wheels of the justice system in motion. It has to move further. It has to be charge sheeted. Then the ultimate justice happens in the court. Now we all know, even in a traditional crime, the wheels of justice, how slow they move in a traditional crime which is understood by judiciary, prosecutors and police very well. Now we are treading upon an area which is hardly understood, even by police, but much more so by prosecutors and even the judiciary. Because everyone says, oh, police should be trained in cybercrime. That is a fact. They should be trained because this is a new area which has evolved in last 10 years. Yes, but that is not enough. Today, there is a bigger need to train and educate the prosecutor who is going to fight that case in the court, and probably magistrate who is going to pass the judgment after understanding. How many of us understand that? So just criminalizing something is not going to per se solve the problem. Have we created mechanism and systems to take it to the logical conclusion? My answer would be no. We haven't really created, and that's why in most cases it's like a dead wall. Whatever gets charge sheeted also reaches the courts, it doesn't proceed further. Because we have all heard, even traditional cases, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, where we understand everything. But this is an area where we understand little bit of it, and the systems are not in place. So that becomes a bigger challenge, and that's why I say there is a huge need to transform the way criminal justice system is operating in this country by speedier trials, by speedier prosecutions, by speedier investigations, and a lot of thinking need to go into that.
Right, right. We'll come to the speedier justice system in a bit. But Colonel Das, I wanted to ask you, could you lay out the scenario of cybercrimes as of today, before we jump into what happens going out to 2040 kind of thing? Just before the session, we were talking, and you mentioned about the danger of infrastructure attacks. So could you lay out the scenario where we are at this stage, and what's the state of the cat and mouse game at this point of time?
Right. In some ways, benchmarks help you understand what the future looks like. So if you take a country like Estonia, I begin always with that when you talk about the future. Estonia is possibly one of the few nations, handful really, maybe 2 or 3, which are completely digital in its entire systems, processes, governance, way of living, everything. And mind you, they are under the shadow of a big eastern neighbor who's been trying to bring them down for a very long time. Now, from a cybercrime point of view, look at 2030, right? So that is something like 2022 in Estonia. These are a few possibilities, right? So if BESCOM or BWSSB were here, they are the people who need to watch out, because we've begun with something called the Bangalore Smart City. Cisco is involved in it. But eventually it will morph and transform into something which is going to be heavily technology dependent. Control of water, control of electricity is going to be digital, and we all know from personal experience that the more you get dependent on technology and digital platforms, you really forget the manual backup that you have, what is called business resiliency. So imagine life without power for 3 days, 2 or 3 days, or even a vague rumor of some water supply line, Kaveri line, getting poisoned, right? It can be a rumor. It happened in Australia in one of these small little towns. But it can do immense damage. And those are the kind of things we are talking about, where city infrastructure systems, the smart policing systems, for example, CCTV systems, which even now has not entered our lives fully, but it will. And the day that happens, you are actually opening up your threat envelopes. To use a technical term, the threat envelope of Bangalore is going to be 100,000 million times more. And vulnerabilities will increase, and there are bad guys always. I mean, they have always been there. They will continue to be there, just that the means and technology will change. So that is one. The good news, bit of good news here, to my mind, is that this justice delivery cycle will get better, to my mind. We are seeing it in some states. We are seeing it in Gujarat. We saw it recently. where, uh, you know, evidence collection, evidence production, presenting it in the court, and this whole cycle, to my mind, is going to be, you know, shrunk. It's going to be a lot better. Justice is going to get more efficient. Challenges will come. We are nearly at a stage where we think DNA cannot be replicated. That's a belief. But what would you do when a sub-inspector and team, you know, specialized team goes to a site, picks up traces of blood? You think it is blood. You pick up traces of blood, and what it gives you is actually not the true evidence. It's going to be something else. And we are on the cusp of it. These are all happening in labs right now. It's only a matter of time it's going to be on the ground.
If I can ask you to just stretch your imagination a bit out to 2040, we are talking about metaverse at this point of time, the merger of the physical and cyber worlds. What are the kinds of dangers that you see in that world? Are we even able to imagine at this point of time what that world is likely to be?
One thing which is, to my mind, which may happen is you may have an alternate avatar or identity.
Not just anonymity, but also multiple avatars.
Yeah, so you land up at a place, and there's somebody says, sir, you've already been here, you've done it. Right? So you may have one or two of your own kind in Bangalore.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That just opens up the possibilities that are there. Mr. Sood, I was just wondering, we'll come back to the police force and its capabilities thing. What is the kind of training that, what's the kind of recruitment and training that you need to prepare for a world where increasingly it's cybercrime that you'll be dealing with? Of course, the parallel real world thing won't go away. So you have to be able to do this and you have to be able to do that. What is the kind of recruitment and training you are looking at, and how are we preparing for that at this point of time?
Thank you for asking this question. In fact, one thing that is happening very fast is that the nature of duties of an average policeman is becoming wider and wider. The traditional crime will never stop. The murders, the assaults, the sexual crimes and all are not going to stop. Let's not talk of a utopian society. This is going to happen. And the new types of crimes are being added every day. Not only crime. In general, the duties and the sphere of responsibilities of a policeman is probably infinite. If somebody was to ask me, what are the duties of a police force, I would say, okay, prevention of crime, detection of crime, etc., VIP security, maintaining law and order and all. And in the end, I would say, probably doing everything which no one else is ready to do. What do you do? I mean, very often we read in the newspapers a traffic cop in Bangalore city filling the potholes. You must have seen it. Or removing the garbage, because somebody who is supposed to do that is not doing it. Now, we have 112 emergency response system, and when a common man can't really understand or make out whom I should contact, the natural instinct is to ring up police, 112. So we are flooded with requests like, oh, there are stray cows in front of my house, there are some vehicle parked in front of my house, which is a genuine thing. But, okay, in the night somebody says, not only that a mic is blaring next to my house, which is a genuine police complaint, but no, somebody's dog is barking next to my house. Can you do something? So anything which you can imagine where we have no clarity whom to contact, okay, pick up policeman and talk to him and expect it to be done. Many times it doesn't get done, and most of the time it cannot be done. That is because probably you will agree with me that police force is the most visible face of governance, which is contactable by the common man. You may have positive interactions, you may have negative interactions, you may have good perceptions about police force, you may have negative perceptions about police force, but the fact is, where there is no one, there will be some policeman on any road or any time 24/7. So the responsibilities are expanding, expectations are expanding, but police force is not expanding. Police force, I mean, if we were 80,000 some 10 years back, today we are about 1 lakh. And I don't find fault with it, because you cannot keep adding numbers infinitely. So what is the strategy? Strategy is to leverage technology. So today, police force in general, and especially in Karnataka, is highly, highly technology oriented. But our perception is not changing. Our perception means, as a common man, a common man's perception about police is not changing. If you think, oh, what is a policeman? A common man's perception is a lathi wielding fellow standing on the road. That is. Some people would even say, oh, morons standing on the road. Somebody will say, yeah, 10th class pass standing on the road with a lathi. All they can do is shout at you or wield lathis and all. That's a common perception. Do we even understand that how difficult the work of a policeman is when there are riots or communal riots? Probably 7 days, 10 days, he will be standing on the road and doing all the necessary things somewhere nearby. Do we ever think the police women who are standing on the road and managing traffic, when they have to go to nature of call, where do they go? So these are the challenges which we never really appreciate. So expectations are increasing. The police force, the facilities, the numbers are not increasing, and which will not increase. Therefore, we are leveraging technology. Now, today you see a lot of policemen on the streets, but I would tell you double the number of policemen are sitting behind the computers and doing whole lot of work using technology, which is not seen, which is not appreciated. But today the police force, when we advertise for 4,000 people, we get about 4 lakh applications, and 90% of them are graduates or postgraduates and all. So the police force has changed for good, in my view, may not be so in your view, but our perceptions of police have not changed. When somebody is flagged down by a constable, somebody who is driving a car, I tell people many times, when you are fined some 100 rupees traffic fine, it's not that the 100 rupee which pinches you. It is the ego which is hurt. Oh, how dare this fellow stop me? I am so educated, and how can I be wrong? He must be wrong. So these are the challenges. Every day an average policeman is bombarded by unrealistic expectations and very unfair treatment at the hand of people who interact with them. Not to say all of them, but a lot of them. So time has changed, where our training is changing, nature of job is changing, but people's perception about the police should change. And only then the change can come. Imagine in a family, if mother always keep criticizing a child, oh, he's good for nothing, he's good for nothing. What would happen to that child? You can imagine. He will become what you always keep telling. So the biggest problem for a police force, not in Karnataka, but everywhere in the country, is that everyone wants us, but no one loves us. That's a tragedy.
Jen, I'll come to you with a two-part question. We are running out of time, so I might not have time to, ask audience questions, but I'll ask them offline. The large perception is that, the justice system, the court system is the weakest link, and Colonel Das was talking about, how do you speed up that bit by going digital? Do you see this happening in the court system at this point of time? How can we proceed with that? The other thing is, again, right now, the offender has an advantage in terms of technology. He can get away with crimes far more times than the law enforcer can catch him, right? But technology is evolving to a point where you can actually, the Minority Report scenario, where you can actually anticipate crimes from happening and stop them. How do you see that from a legal point of view, going forward?
Yeah, I will just respond to both of these questions. I wouldn't necessarily say that the courts are the weakest link. Yes, our courts in a lot of cases do take, many years for crimes to be, finally reach the final decision. But in the criminal justice system, as you know very well, all institutions play a role. I mean, unless the charge sheet is filed, the case will not progress. We have seen how charge sheet, though there is a provision that in 90 days it should be done, it takes years on it. So every agency is equally involved. Where the investigation is not done, then how ready the prosecution is, and then ultimately the court has to decide. So I feel that if we really want to, improve the criminal justice system, we have to look at it holistically, not just court reforms. Court reforms, especially in criminal cases, are not going to be enough unless there is prosecutorial reform. Prosecutor trainings are needed. How can we get the police investigation side to be improved? So all of it needs an improvement. And I would actually say that during the pandemic, with online hearings, in many cases, in fact, courts are doing a fantastic job. We've had online hearings in the most complicated criminal matters. Courts are there, they grappled with it, with the whole digital kind of front end, were able to deal with it. Of course, we all had to learn how to deal with it, how to learn how to, do all our work online. And I think the pandemic actually saw a great improvement in disposals and, improvement of the court system. So I feel that we need to look at an overall reworking of the criminal justice system, which includes all institutions. And the second thing you talked about, the criminal kind of having the
ability
upper
to
hand.
anticipate and stop.
Yeah, and anticipating. And I think we have to, and how do we build that kind of knowledge and that kind of, a large number of crimes you will find this, and I'm talking especially of crimes against women, whatever kind of crimes they may be physical crimes or digital crimes or cyber crimes, most of them are done by repeat offenders. They're done by repeat offenders. And so the question would be that had those offenders been convicted earlier or not released on bail or action taken, the subsequent crimes wouldn't have happened. So when we say that we have to predict what this person may do next, these are basic things that we have to build into our work, whether from the prosecution side, the knowledge that what all happens, criminology knowledge, technology knowledge, and then ultimately in court we have to be able to say that, is this, can we predict so that we can, prevent bail, take serious measures so that that person really is not out there again doing repeat crimes or far worse things. So how do we build that kind of knowledge and feed it into our criminal procedure?
Right.
Can I just take up one point? She made a very valid point, and I also feel, and I have a view that even the most destructive things can have positive outcomes in life. And pandemic, if we call it destructive, it has done a lot of good to the judicial system, because our way of delivering justice has really changed in last 2 years. Accused used to be produced physically, they are being produced virtually now. It's saving so much of manpower of police force. They were physically taken from prisons and all. They are being produced virtually, and the remands are getting granted. The hearings are happening over virtual mode. Not only it has increased the efficiency, it has brought the transparency. Today, the whole world can see a trial and the proceedings of the court. So a lot of good things have happened due to this pandemic, which we must appreciate and which have added to the efficiency of the system. The second point she raised is, again, a very valid point. Somebody asked me, give us security, give us safety. And I say, see, this is a very vague term. When somebody comes, I am being, chased, or somebody is stalking me and all. I always feel that the way of giving safety and security, because you can't give individual cops to everyone, That's not a practical solution. VIPs may get it, but a common man would never be able to get it. Though even the VIP who get it don't become very secure after getting it. The best way of making society secure is by seeing that the criminals do get punished. If they get punished, if they get convicted, that is the best safety that is added to the system. And we have to collectively, as Shri rightly said, it's not the judiciary alone or police alone or the prison system alone or prosecutors. Everyone, the systems have to improve. And if we can ensure that the guilty get punished faster, the repeat offenders remain inside, the society in general will become safer. Of course, I don't agree that much of the crime against women is only by repeat offenders, because much of the crime against women happens in the four walls of the homes, which never get reported, which never comes to the public domain itself. So these are very complex things, but in general, society will become safer if those who have committed crimes, who have done wrong things, get the punishment faster. Thank you.
Right. I believe we are completely out of time. So I'll just, instead of asking a question, there is a very interesting thought here, and I'll leave that with you. Why can't we have drones, manage traffic in Bangalore? That solves, why can't we have drones manage traffic in Bangalore? That solves your problem of, expanding police force. I'll just leave that thought with you, and we can probably take that.
But one question which was asked in the previous session about, somebody asked a question about footpaths, why police can't remove those rediwalas and all. I'm wondering, I have been asked this question for last 20 years because I handled traffic in this city. Why no one asks about the thousands and lakhs of cars which are parked on the footpath? That rediwala is making economy. The economy of patris and redis is 100 times more than MG Road and Brigade Road. Those cars and thousands and lakhs of cars are standing idle, not adding a single penny to the economy. Somewhere we are elitist in our approach. The poor man is the easier target. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Colonel Das. Thank you, Praveen. Sood. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Gaming Bengaluru's Crime Scene 2040. I would request Mr. B.S. Arun, Deputy Editor, to hand over mementos to our speakers, please. Mr. Arun to join us on stage and felicitate the panelists for this very, very exciting discussion, Gaming Bengaluru's Crime Scene 2040. Thank you so very much. Mr. Praveen Sood, we have Colonel KPM Das, and of course, Ms. Jaina Kothari, who joined us as well, senior advocate in the Karnataka High Court and the Supreme Court, social rights, disability rights, family law, constitutional and administrative laws are her areas of expertise. Thank you so very much.